The Act of Killing, 2012 documentary directed by Joshua Oppenheimer, and an absolute must-watch due to its uniqueness. The original plan for the film was to look at the history of Indonesia, specifically at the political purge and mass killings of 1965 and 1966. If, like me, you don't know what happened back then, there was a military coup that took over the country, and the new regime wanted to get rid of all the opponents, which they managed to do by employing gangs of thugs who would capture people, accuse them of supporting communism, even if they had absolutely nothing to do with that previous regime, and then torture and kill them. Estimates put the number of deaths in that time between 500,000 and 1.2 million people, which is essentially mass murder. And it was done with the knowledge and in some cases support of the Western countries. Now, the original plan from the filmmakers was to look at these events through the eyes of survivors, victims of torture, however many live to this day, and their children, how they viewed that time period and events. But as the filmmakers were preparing, they gained access to many of the actual killers who were still alive. And in talking to them, a new concept was born. Let's let them tell the story. Which might seem like a weird idea until you actually hear them talk about it and understand their viewpoint. See, you would expect that they would try to whitewash the history, shift blame, deny, make excuses. But these people are actually proud of what they did. They happily recount how and where they were killing people. They describe their methods with giant smiles, talk about how they would later change their testimonies to make the victims look more guilty when they knew they were killing innocents, essentially. It's so fucked up to watch them talk about it like that. And not just talk, the killers were invited to prepare reenactments of their memories in whatever genres, movie styles they chose. So there's a scene where they dress up like American Italian mafia and do a scene of interrogation and torture, but there's also a scene where they just sing and dance in colorful costumes about their victory against communists. So it's just so bizarre to see them do it, to see them approach those subjects in this way. Because I mean, other examples of murderers surviving like this that come to mind in the West especially are obviously the Nazis from World War II. And the ones that were not put on trial immediately, they went into hiding, changed their names, escaped to countries like Argentina, just basically lived in secret. But this is a completely different scenario because in this one, the bad guys won. They are free to boast about their murders because the regime is still in power, because they're still important. I mean, hell, they're raising the next generation of gangsters. There's a scene at the beginning of the film where the camera follows these dudes as they go through a market and shake down shop owners for money. It's like unbelievable because these psychopaths are completely shameless and remorseless in the way they talk about the past and live in the present. It takes an entire film, this huge endeavor of actually, reenacting scenes and one of the main dudes actually pretending to be a victim in one scene, for him to finally start clicking in his mind that what he has done was actually despicable. We see that in the contrast between two scenes where he's at a location in the same spot and he's talking about how he used to kill people there. And the first one takes place at the beginning of the film, and he's proud and happy, cheerful. And the second one is right at the end, and you can see finally something changes in him. You can see that he's beginning to comprehend. But yeah, it's so little and so late that it makes for a very unique viewing experience. A venture into the minds of psychopaths, so ridden of guilt, shame, remorse, so disconnected from their humanity that it's like they don't see anything wrong, because they don't even really classify their victims as human beings most often. Listen, I could talk about it for a long time probably, but I think that no words can better explain the experience of actually seeing this film with your own eyes. It's quietly and casually terrifying, and I have seen no other movie like this where you see people so far removed from basic voices of conscience. Do see it yourself.